Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Tent of Abraham. I'm Tamir Kreisman from Jerusalem, Israel, and we continue with David King Mashiach. This one is called Clean Hands and a Pure Heart. 2 points if you know where that comes from. We have a term in Hebrew called Gemilut Chasadim. As we know, chesed, is loving kindness. So chasadim, loving kindnesses, plural, which properties are of the chesed is giving for its own sake without even the thought of reciprocity. That is the true loving kindness. In other words, take this, I want nothing in return. Not even the thought goes in there of between you and God, yeah? For instance, God created the world, and he is known as Hagomel Chasadim Tovim, the one who repays or bestows good kindnesses, loving kindnesses. So it's repaying, but also bestowing. It could mean the same thing. So who exactly is God repaying what to, and why? We'll get to that in the end. It's not exactly repaying anything if he is the one who first gave it, yes, as in life to all creation. So what is God repaying for what? He's the one that came first, right? The students of Rabbi Eliezer the Great asked him, this is Pirkei de Rabbi Eliezer, they asked him, what can one do in order to be saved from Chavlei Mashiach, the birth pangs of Mashiach? And he told them 2 things, Yasok b'Torah ubigmilut chasadim. He should deal in Torah study, meaning study Torah, and repaying kindness, gemilut chasadim, or bestowing kindness. So again, repaying kindness to who? If kindness is something that one is supposed to do, knowing there is no way that can receive anything back for it, then why is it called gemilut chasadim, repaying kindness, you see? Our repaying kindness is not towards God in the traditional sense, because God doesn't need our kindness. When one lives according to the mitzvot of the Torah and learns Torah for its own sake, that has nothing to do with any kind of reciprocity, as said in Pirkei Avot 2:8. Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai received from Hillel and Shammai. He used to say, if you have learned much Torah, do not claim credit for yourself, because for such a purpose you were created. Okay? We can never come to God and say, hey, look what I learned. Look how much Torah I learned. No. It's like coming to your boss who pays your salary. That's the only reason why you're there, to do your job, and he pays you your salary. For us, that is breath and sustenance, yes? And you want an acknowledgement for that which you do. You want a gold star for doing your job. Same thing. Don't boast by your learning Torah. That's why you are here. And we've also learned the Torah study just for the sake of knowledge alone, just so you can know it and not live it, is a grave sin. The Torah was given not only to do the commandments, that goes without saying, right? That's why they are there. And believe it or not, even monkeys can follow orders, just like the world system that is about to collapse, because monkeys are following orders. All of them. Monkeys. But now that you have that knowledge, what are you going to do with it? That is the question. And what is the greatest way that you can give back infinity-fold from what you have been given? And mind you, still fall infinitely short, yet that does not excuse us from not trying. This is how you treat your fellow man. That's what this all comes down to. You could never give God what he gave you. Worry about what's going on over here. Do not try and impress God with your responsibilities, but rather understand why you are here or in a particular situation. And then out of love and humility, take care of those who cannot take care of themselves. Those who God placed in your path, not for their sake, maybe a little bit for their sake, but actually they're doing you a greater favor by bringing their misfortune to you to give you a chance to help them, for yours as well primarily. That is gemilut chasadim. That is giving for its own sake, because God gave you the ability to do so. Kindness leads to Torah, and Torah leads to kindness. True Torah, yeah? And when we discuss a man like David, they are one and the same, because everything he did was for the sake of heaven. In Tana de Belial Zuta, the book of the School of Elijah, from the Schools of Elijah, chapter 3, it speaks of this direct connection even in one aspect, and that is taking a wife, meaning the reason why one takes a wife. It says, from where do we know that one who takes a wife for the sake of heaven, this is what we're talking about, will have sons who will save Israel in the time of trouble and bring forth much Torah and mitzvot among Israel? Go out and learn from Amram. Who is Amram? Who took a wife, the daughter of Levi, right, Yocheved, for the sake of heaven, and from him came forth Moses and Aaron and Miriam, who saved Israel and brought forth much Torah and mitzvot amongst Israel. And learn from Boaz, son of Salman, who took a wife for the sake of heaven, Ruth. And from there came David and Solomon, his son, who were their saviors, who were saviors to Israel and brought forth much Torah and mitzvot among Israel. And on them, and those that come from them, and those that do what they do, yeah? And that which comes from them, and those who do as they did, it is written in Isaiah 66:22, for as the new heavens and the new earth that I am making stand before me, says the Lord, so shall your seed and your name stand, because of doing things for the sake of heaven. In other words, you're not getting anything back from it. You're doing it for the love of God, quite literally. You see, Abraham received the blessing because he showed genuine loving kindness to the world, aka for the sake of heaven. We know this because the whole world was against him. They were, throw him in the fire, for sure. Everybody. That's why he was called one. God is called one, and God called Abraham one. They all wanted to kill him, throw him in the fire, and they did throw him in the fire. And yet all he wanted to do was introduce the world to its creator. He didn't hold anything against anybody. Come, let me tell you about who made you. Not those little stones and everything. That blessing he received was that his children should merit to receive the Torah. It's not a small thing to receive the Torah. It's a big responsibility. To receive the Torah and the land on which to fulfill it. You cannot live Torah if you don't live in Israel. They still don't get it. It's okay. Now they're already pouring into the neighborhoods. You see, in Brooklyn and everything, they're pouring into the neighborhood. I used to live right down the street from that, by the way. Anyway, but they still don't get it. It's okay. Maybe, I don't know. We'll see what comes next, right? God have mercy. Anyway, so, like we said, live on the land to fulfill the mitzvot of the Torah, unlocking its full potential. So, how does one even attempt to do this? In Midrash Tehillim 25, it says, Solomon said in Proverbs 25:25. Now again, it's Midrash Tehillim 25 on Psalms 25. Within that explanation, it'll bring you all the Torah to help you understand the verses. We'll get to that in the end of the section, but bear with me. Midrash Tehillim 25, it says, Solomon said in Proverbs 25:25, as cold water upon a faint soul, so is good news from a distant country. David was tired, and his soul yearned to be in the temple, as said in Psalms 26:8, I love the house where you dwell. But it didn't happen yet, right? It's David prophecy. And in Psalms 84:3, my soul longed and even pined for the courts of God. And so David then said from Psalms 24:3, who will ascend upon the mount, the Lord's mount? Mi ya'aleh behar Adonai, u'mi yakum bimkom kodsho, and who will stand in his holy place? To which God replied, again, all the Psalms are Ruach HaKodesh. These are conversations back and forth with a godly understanding. To which God said, what, you don't know? He who has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not taken my name in vain and has not sworn deceitfully. So in other words, he who has clean hands and a pure heart. If you have clean hands and a pure heart, these two things, you're set. It's not that easy though, right? Whoever has these two attributes, said the Lord. Clean hands, pure heart. Name of the class. David rejoiced immediately and said, I have those. Now, don't think for a second that David was boasting over here, right? Because this wasn't, it wasn't even he who said it, right? But rather the great prophet Samuel in the name of God from 1 Samuel 13:14. But now Your kingdom shall not continue, said Samuel to Saul after he failed to kill Agag of Amalek, who reproduced, and here we are today. The Lord has sought for himself a man after his heart. Okay, so in other words, this is coming from God, right? And that is, of course, David. So David is not boasting because God is the most humble. He is the tzaddik. He is the anav. Therefore, it is said, as cold water upon a faint soul. As David said in Psalms 119, 106, I swore and I fulfilled to keep the judgments of your righteousness. As a result, he received two rewards. The reward for action, for actually doing, and the reward for making an oath and fulfilling it. It's a big deal. And again, we made an oath. We said Na'aseh v'nishma, to fulfill the Torah. So in other words, just by doing it, we can also receive these same rewards. Therefore, in Psalms 25, verse 2, it says, My God, in you I trust. Elohai becha batachti, alevosha al yaltzu oivai li. Let me not be ashamed, nor shall my enemies rejoice over me. But really, my God, in you I trust. Okay, so clean hands, keeping the commands, meaning doing them. Pure heart, so that everything we do is purely for the sake of heaven. Is this an easy thing? Absolutely not, because then everybody would be David. Which shows us that this is extremely difficult, and yet we were never commanded to be perfect. Only to be good, which means we must try. Something to strive for, as we said. Okay? Perfection is the opposite of progress. All right? And the practical way that these things manifest is by living according to the Torah and serving and helping others out of the pure kindness of our hearts. Check this out. In Midrash Rabbah Kohelet 7, it says, Rabbi Yehuda said, This is to teach you that anyone who rejects acts of kindness, it is as though he rejects the fundamental doctrine. This doctrine is the belief and trust in God, as this refers to what Naval said from Psalms 14:1 regarding Naval, what David said of Naval. For the conductor of David, Naval, this man, said in his heart, There is no God. They have dealt corruptly, meaning of he who said these things and his kind. They have dealt corruptly. They have committed abominable deeds. No one does good. Ein oseh tov. So wow. So Naval, this is David speaking of him. So while, in other words, you get the kind of person that he is, right? Already we feel like, oh, I know these kind of people. And then you look at how they live and their actions, and a person who really has no God, there's no fear of God, no repercussions. In other words, I do things privately and I don't care who sees because there is no God, right? The worst kind of people. We all know these kind of people. Hopefully not personally, but we all know these kind of people. Now, watch David. While everyone wept for the passing of Samuel, the great prophet Samuel, he was beloved by Israel. Everyone's heart broke. He would go out of his house, he would go to them and judge them where they were and teach them Torah and halacha where they were. Beloved by Israel, his life was dedicated to service of God since he was a child, thanks to his incredible mother, Hannah. In fact, we just celebrated his Yortzeit on Yom Yerushalayim this past Friday. Okay, it was Samuel's Yortzeit. So he was beloved by Israel, and everybody was mourning his passing. But David's heart broke for Naval, a God-denying lowlife. Not that his heart didn't break for Samuel. Yes, of course it did, but it also broke for this guy just the same way. But King David, peace be upon him, what would he do? He would perform acts of kindness for everyone. He would say, thus, even a killer or one who is killed, even a pursuer or one who is pursued, I perform acts of kindness for him as I do for the righteous. So you know that this is pure. You understand? There's nothing for him in this. That's how he also knows that he's doing this purely. That is why it is written in Psalms 13:6, but I trusted in your loving kindness. My heart will rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord, for he has bestowed it upon me. Ashira la'Adonai ki what? Gamal alai. Gmilut chasadim, gamal. Gmilut is to not restore. Repay. Gamal is to bestow, for he has bestowed it upon me. So we still need to kind of retranslate this verse, because though it's great, it sounds great in English, right? Its meaning is a little bit lost. It's much deeper than that. That's why I'm here. Okay. So the word yagel, first let's read in Hebrew. Va'ani b'chasdecha batachti. Va'ani, I, chesed, bechasdecha, in your chasadim, in your loving kindnesses, batachti, bitachon, trust, yagel libi b'yeshuatecha. Okay, so what does this mean? The word yagel, though it can mean rejoice, from the word gila, right? Gila, sisu v'simchu, gila, and whatever, that's rejoice, but it also refers to revelation, yagel, gilui. Psalms 119:18, uncover my eyes, and I shall look at hidden things from your Torah. Gol enai, gimel lamed, gol enai va'abita, and I will, if you uncover my eyes, if you reveal the truth to me, then I will see your niflaot, your wondrous things from your Torah. You could read the Torah, but if God doesn't open your eyes to it, then these are words and stories, but it's so much more. Now, let's translate 13:6 properly. But I trusted in your loving kindness, your giving to me out of pure love. As a result of that trust, my heart, it's not verbatim, but it's the tachlis, okay? As a result of that trust, my heart will be joyous at the revelation of your salvation. Then I will sing to the Lord, for he had repaid me with kindness. I just saw one of these little experiments that they did. I mean, I didn't see the experiment. A guy was talking about this experiment. I thought it was fascinating. Just watch this. They wanted to see how long a rat could tread water. Okay, so the rat stayed there for I think it was 60 minutes. And then it drowned. Now, so here's the experiment part. Then they just put a rat in the water, and close to that 60-minute mark, someone reached their hand in, grabbed the rat, took him out of the water, and then still holding him, and then put him back in the water. And then the guy's asking, how long do you think the rat was still treading water? Was it double, triple, quadruple? You're not going to believe this. It said the rat treaded water afterwards for 60 hours. 60. Why? Because that hope of salvation. Just a rat, yes? How much more so? So if we are fortunate enough to understand, to comprehend that God has his hand on us, that is enough to keep us going. I also know this because that is what kept my grandparents going in Auschwitz. When they were seeing things that are just unimaginable, nobody sees these things today. What kept them going was the salvation of God. That's it. In hell, that's what keeps them going. And so you can actually prove this scientifically. There's something to this, and that's what gives you strength. My grandfather was saying, all you have to do is just not give up. It's one day at a time. Today, we're pretty much fighting for our lives, lehavdil, yes? The war, everything around us is trying to kill us slowly, okay? Not just the gas chambers and the Nazis and well, yes, Nazis, but you get what I'm saying, okay? Very important. So, I trusted in your loving kindness. You're giving to me out of pure love, loving kindness, chesed. You want nothing back from me. As a result of that trust, because I trusted that you would put your hand in, right, and take me up, my heart will be joyous at the revelation of your salvation. Why do people, godless people today, why do they walk around like zombies, miserable, just like self-destructive? Because there's no revelation of salvation. There is a God and he can save you. Trust in him. They don't have that connection. That's why they will drown after 60 minutes, so to speak. Then I will sing to the Lord, for he had repaid me with kindness. Just remember this. All right. It would seem that God's repayment to us is when we trust him, like we said, and his kindness is the revelation of his salvation. In other words, I got you. Know this. I did not know this, but now you will. Now you do. Okay. Because this information, even on the smallest level, just knowing that it exists, that is loving kindness within itself. As we just read in Kehelet Rabbah, and David would perform acts of kindness for everyone across the board, right? No matter who the person was, because they're still a person after all, no matter what they said. Okay. You see, a man who shows kindness and performs chesed like this to everyone, regardless if they are righteous or wicked, rich or poor, of high status or low status, this is the kind of man you want judging the people, right? Justice is blind in a sense, but not really, because you need to judge according to the specific things, right? A person who treats everyone equally, that's the kind of man you want judging Israel. That was David, right? As it says in Bereshit Rabbati Vayechi, Parashat Vayechi, that David judged Israel with the righteousness of heart. We can even read this in the simple text in 2 Samuel 8:15. And David reigned over all Israel, and David administered justice and charity for all his people. Vayehi David oseh mishpat Utzdaka. Lechol amo. Mishpat is mamash, it's judgments. Mishpat is judgments like in a courtroom judgment. So justice and charity. Now you might think that these two contradict one another, right? How can God be completely benevolent and completely just? That's impossible. Yes, if you're thinking like a monkey, then that is impossible. But not when it comes to absolute truth. Of this very verse that we just read, David did justice and charity for all his people, it said in Masechet Sanhedrin 6b. And similarly, with regard to David, it says, and David executed justice and charity to all his people. And it is not that whatever there is wherever there is strict justice, there is no charity, and wherever there is charity, there is no strict justice. Rather, which is the justice that has within charity? You must say this is mediation. In other words, okay, let's explain what we just said. What does this mean? If a judge adjudicated a case of monetary law and he correctly exonerated the party who was exempt from payment and deemed liable the party who was liable to pay, if they saw that due to his ruling a poor person became liable to pay an amount of money that is beyond his means, and therefore the judge himself paid for him from his own house, this is justice and also charity. We discussed this, I don't remember which one of the classes, but one of the David classes, that's exactly what David would do. He would give, let's say a poor person would steal from anybody, doesn't matter, but a poor person would steal. It says, thou shalt not steal. I stole because I was hungry. Okay, no problem. But then you can also ask for charity, and we are commanded in the Torah to give, right? So, in other words, the poor person, if he stole for the sake of a noble cause to take care of his family or whatever, it's still breaking the Torah law. Thou shalt not steal. So what did David do? He ruled against the perpetrator, so to speak. And now how's this person going to pay back that person? David's going to do it, but not from the court's money, not from the people's money, from his own house, from his own pocket. And like we said, it's not that, I know the judge, I'll be fine and I can do whatever I want. That David knew very, very, he knew if the person is playing around there or not. But that's why he's like, I'm executing justice. You have to pay this person. I can't do it. I got you. You're done. Don't do this again. We're good to go. Moving along. So justice and charity, sometime within the same instance. The Gemara continues. It is justice for this one and charity for this one. It is justice for this one because the judge restored his money to him, and it is charity for the poor person because the judge paid for him from his own house. And similarly, with regard to David, it says, and David executed justice and charity to all his people. He executed justice for this one because he restored the money to him, and charity for that one because he paid for him from his own house. Amazing. So, like I said, we discussed this before, I believe, but in the sense, this is how God runs the world. God runs his world. If something had been corrupted, there must always be a rectification. You can't say, let it go. Everything has to be perfectly restored. And since we all fall short, though we wish to improve, God will assist us in doing so. Assist, I say, because it's all on us. Furthermore, when David would enter into his study halls, he would always give charity and say, as he said in Psalm 17:15, I will see your face, I will see your countenance. With righteousness, I will be satisfied with your image upon the awakening. Why did David give money in the houses of study, in the yeshivas? Because Etz Chaim hi lamachazikim ba. It is a tree of life, the Torah, right? Lamachazikim ba, for those who grasp onto it. Now, though David was the greatest Torah scholar of his generation, right? He still supported other Torah scholars. Lamachazikim ba, those who grasp onto the Torah, but those who cannot, vetomchea meushal, those who support the study of Torah, meushal, ashrei, blessed. You see? If you can't study Torah, support someone who does. And every single shekel that you give to he who learns Torah, every single ounce of Torah that he learns, you get it too. It's not that, 50% of his Torah, it's all of his Torah becomes your Torah because you helped support him. You see? That's what David did. What? He was short on mitzvot? No. Amazing. Do it. Study more. That's what he did. Now, I just want you to realize something in the Hebrew language, because from one word, you can get many different translations in English, but in Hebrew, they're all connected, as we can see these variations throughout the text. So, tzaddik, righteous, tzedek, justice, tzedakah, charity, tzodek or tzadka is correct, as in you are right. Okay? Tzaddik, righteous, we could see, for instance, now obviously they're throughout, I just chose a few options. Tzaddik, righteous. Genesis 18:23, and Abraham approached and said, this is regarding the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah, will you even destroy the righteous with the wicked? Ha'af tispe tzaddik im rasha. As far as tzedek, justice goes, Deuteronomy 16:20, justice you shall pursue. Tzedek, tirdof. It is closer to righteousness, but again, I'm going here with the best English translated words. It still is missing. Tzedakah, charity. Okay. Proverbs 10:2. Lo yu'ilu otzorot resha u'tzedakah tatzil mimavet. Treasuries of wickedness will not avail, but charity will save from death. Literally, I've heard stories, people supporting people, and they had a death sentence coming to them, and it kept on being pushed off until the person stopped giving, and that was the end of it, right? Why did you take them? Because you stopped supporting that person. You were supposed to die 10 years ago, but you decided to support this orphan and everything, right? So the moment that you actually give tzedakah, it can save a death sentence for you, as it says in Proverbs 10:2. U'tzedakah tatzil mimavet. Tzodek or tzadka, correct, confession, if you will. Genesis 38:26, when it came to Judah and Tamar, then Judah recognized them and he said, she is right. Vayaker Yehuda vayomer tzadka mimeni. Not only she is right, but she is correct mimeni. I'm wrong, she is right. Taking responsibility, confession. Now, when we read verses like Psalm 17:15, after the understanding and context we got from the verse, I will behold your face with righteousness, or countenance with righteousness. I will be satisfied with your image upon awakening. I will behold your presence through the confession of righteousness, justice, and charity. It's all the same word into one over there. David saw how God managed his world. As a result, David managed his God-given kingdom in the same way. How does the master do it? That's how I'm going to do it. The only way one could even attempt to get close to that is to have even a little foresight. That's how you just open your eyes just a little bit. You have to deal, yes, with what's in front of you. You don't open your eyes and want to deal with what's there. That's not relevant to you. 2 steps is not relevant to you. You have to deal with what's here, but you have to look 2 steps ahead, 20 steps ahead. Be aware of your surroundings. You can't say, this and this, you see what's happening? I'm like, take 10 steps back now and see that that is part of this greater picture. That's why in today's day and age, most people You wouldn't even know. Most people still monkeys. Anyway, meaning this world is but a blip and it's over. But this blip is what is going to dictate your eternity. Your eternity. And you are the one who has free will to shape it and to mold it as you see fit, exercising your free will. What most people are not aware of or don't want to be aware of are the consequences of their actions. The less connected to God you are, the more this world is going to matter to you. In the physical sense, anyway. People want money, status, power, experience, memories, having fun, and everything else that has nothing to do with the world to come. They want comfort and peace, but they don't want peace. They want quiet. Peace and quiet are two completely different things. We had quiet here in Israel for a bit. How'd that work out for us? Okay. So like we said, all these things that have nothing to do with the world to come, they're all in the here and in the now. See who talks like that. You can see what they're focused on or kicking the can down the road. And guess what? A Ben Noach, a Noahide who follows the 7 laws of Noah, can actually live in this world in this manner. Money, status, power, experiences, memories, having fun, and all that good stuff. Assuming you keep to the 7 Noahide laws, and still have a place in the world to come. But this is not so when it comes to Israel, right? 6:13. The literal spiritual weight of the world must be carried. And with great power, well, you know the rest. There's a passage in Isaiah 33:6. Write this one down, seriously, or mark this. Isaiah 33:6. It reads, V'haya emunat itecha chosen yeshuot chochmat vadat, yirat Adonai hi otzaro. And the faith of your times shall be the strength of salvations, wisdom and knowledge, fear of the Lord, that is his treasure. Okay. It's a wonderful verse. And in the simple understanding, this was for the sake of saving what was left of Israel from Assyria, right? When you had the 10 tribes who were already exiled and the refugees trickled down to the area of Judah and then hid within the city walls as Hezekiah expanded them and brought in the water and everything, and they were ready to go, meaning ready to defend, but you have almost a 1 billion-man army, the Assyrians, led by Sennacherib, right? And they're talking about what happened over here, that on that night, God sent his angel. It said it was a plague in the form of an angel, yeah, and he killed 185,000 generals. 185,000 generals, each one commanding a minimum of 1,000 men. The small ones commanded 1,000. Some commanded up to 50,000 men, just so you understand the numbers. It was around 890 million people. Covered the entire earth, the largest army the world has ever seen. And they could have easily taken Jerusalem, but not. But the deeper understanding of this verse is what carries Israel into the world to come. And so in Masechet Shabbat 31a, we read, Rish Lakish said, what is the meaning of that which is written? And the faith of your time shall be a strength of salvation, wisdom, and knowledge, and the fear of the Lord is his treasure. From Isaiah 33:6. Listen to what he says. Faith, emunah, right? Emunat, that is the order of Zraim. What are this? We're going through these are 6 points here. We're going through the 6 orders of the Mishnah, okay? This one is the order of Zraim, seeds. In the Mishnah, because a person has faith in God and plants his seeds. And as we know, in the old days, those that had the greatest faith were the farmers. Because you could toil, right? You could plow the field and plant the seeds, and then if there's no rain, there's no food for you or for Israel for at least another year. So in other words, everything depends on their prayer. And they needed faith. They needed to have faith, because prayer without faith is meaningless. It's like, please, can you just help us out of our hair? It's not like that. They had to pray. So these were the farmers of Israel. That's why faith has to do directly with Masechet Zraim. Itecha, your times. That is the order of Moed. Moed is the times, the festivals. Moadim L'Simcha. These are God's appointed times, which deals with the various occasions and festivals that occur throughout the year. Chosen, strength. That is the order of Nashim, women. Nuff said. Salvations, Yeshuot. That is the order of Nezikin, damages, as one who is being pursued is rescued from the hands of his pursuer via God's salvations. Chokhmat, wisdom. It's Chokhmah, but it's Chokhmat, the wisdom of. Wisdom, that is the order of Kedoshim, consecrated items. In other words, why, where, what, how, and you need wisdom also to, and have understanding to properly perform everything that is said over there. And knowledge, Vadat. That is the order of Teharot, purity, which is particularly difficult to master. That's why these are things that you can't, I sort of know. You must master Talak, purity. Everything depends on purity. You could do all the mitzvot in the Torah, but if you do them in an impure state, you're taking those mitzvot and you're creating dark angels. You bring it to the Sitra Achra because you're taking something holy, and because you yourself are impure, you're making it unholy. Big no-no, okay? So these are the 6 points based on what we just said. Now, like we said, these are the 6 orders of the Mishnah, which breaks down all the 613 laws in the Torah and how best to perform them. And they are what make Israel stand and the world go round. And still the section and verse concludes with, and even if a person studies and masters all of these, a master in Torah and in Halacha, the fear of the Lord is his treasure. That's it. In other words, without reverential fear of God, because it's not fear like, it's reverential fear of, you understand, when you realize who you are compared to the creator of all of reality, and he gave you life and breath and a responsibility, that is reverential fear right there. Like that's where everything starts from. The beginning of understanding is the fear of the Lord, or the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. If you don't have this reverential fear, everything means nothing, okay? But it doesn't stop there, because this is for this world, all these things that we said. In other words, how to live to take you to the world to come. And what we are going to see from the same verse is a look into the actual world to come, okay? These things get you into the world to come. But now once you're in the world to come, watch how these 6 points are still relevant. With regard to the same verse, Rava said, after departing from this world, when a person is brought to judgment for the life he lived in this world, they say to him in the order of that verse. Now, just so you know, the questions that you're about to hear right here that I'm going to read to you, this is from the Talmud. What I'm about to say right here, I have heard and seen accounts myself of people who were clinically dead. They were taken to the courts of heaven and they were asked these very questions. Okay? All taken from the verse we are discussing. Okay? And the faith of your time shall be the strength of salvations, wisdom and knowledge, fear of the Lord, that is his treasures. Okay. First question they ask, did you conduct business faithfully? Because it corresponds with emunah, faith, right? Did you designate times for Torah study? These ascribed times. Did you engage in procreation, strength, women? Did you wait, expect, long for salvation, Yeshuot? Did you engage in the dialectics of wisdom, chokhmah? In other words, did you discuss Torah, things that actually mean something, not hey, what did you do last night? And 6, or understand one matter from another. Evanta davar mitoch davar, knowledge. Okay, that actually comes from Mishnah. Evanta davar mitoch davar. It is written here, but we can also stand from this and this and that. Whoa, amazing. Okay, so you start with chokhmah and then you get to, through binah, you get to dat. And nevertheless, beyond all of these, if the fear of the Lord is his treasure, yes, He is worthy. And if not, no, none of these accomplishments have any value. You see? There's a parable that illustrates this. A person who said to his emissary, bring a kol of wheat, it's a measurement of wheat, up to the attic for me and store it there. The messenger went and brought it up for him. He said to the emissary, did you mix a kav or chomton, a preservative that keeps away the worms, in it for me as well? He said to him, no. He said to him, if so, it would have been preferable you had not brought it up, because now the whole thing is going to get eaten anyway. So in other words, your whole time that you spent serving me is good for nothing. It didn't help you, and it didn't help me. Of what use is a worm-infested wheat? Likewise, Torah and mitzvot without the fear of God are of no value. No value. That is why, hear what I'm saying, I'm not impressed when certain politicians say Baruch Hashem or put on tefillin publicly in front of a camera once or twice in their life. Look at the actions of these people. Look at the deeds of these people. Notice what they say, notice what they do. Doesn't match, does it? Okay. End of story. That's it. I don't care. So you see, these are all also categories, and they don't stop at the description. For instance, I'll give you an example. It's not just these things break down everything. Did you engage in procreation? What is it? It didn't say, did you procreate? Did you engage in procreation? In the simple sense, you will be asked if you created the opportunity to have children. You know what I mean? God decides if you have children or if you don't have children, but that is the equivalent to acquiring souls, bringing the neshamot kedoshot laolam, just as Abraham and Sarah did before they actually had Isaac. If you help sustain someone, a soul, right, a nefesh, through money, moral support, time spent teaching Torah, and on, that falls within that category as well. In other words, sustaining a soul. Bringing a nefesh chaya, bringing a neshama here to the world, sustaining it. How about conducting business faithfully? You shall not lie, cheat, steal. You have to pay your employees on time. You cannot set up a trap before a blind man. In other words, you can't, no bait and switches. Speak ill will of your fellow that he loses business, and so on. You see, did you conduct business faithfully? In other words, knowing that God is watching even when nobody else is, knowing that according to man you might be able to get away with it, but you're not, because God is watching, the reverential fear of the Lord. You see? These are so many subcategories that are direct commands in the Torah tied to these 6 questions, these 6 points. And with this understanding, we can see just how far and wide this net can extend. And so in the simple sense, David definitely fulfilled these 6 points, and then some. From Otzal Midrashim, the chapter on Hallel, it goes through all the verses of the Hallel that we say, breaking down each verse as pertains to the author, David, of course, and gives us the following regarding Psalms 118:19. Pitchuli sha'arei tzedek avovam odeya. Open for me the gates of righteousness, I shall enter them and thank God. It says, in the world to come, a man is asking, what have you toiled in? Meaning during your lifetime. A man is asked, what have you toiled in? Like we just said. And he says, I would feed the hungry. I would feed the hungry. So they say to him, this is the gate for those who feed the hungry. Enter through that gate. If he would say, I watered the thirsty, they would say, this is the gate that's for those who watered the thirsty. Please go through that gate. I clothed the naked, I raised orphans, I gave charity, I repaid kindness. And they would say to him, enter into that designated gate. You did this, you go here, you did this, you go there, right? Okay. But David said, I did them all. Therefore, open them all for me. Hence, open for me the gates, sha'arei tzedek, not sha'ar tzedek, the gates of righteousness, plural, and I shall enter them and thank God. All this, of course, is in humility. This is King David, okay? He's God's Mashiach. There's Oh, he's not. It's David. All right. But it's not enough for a shepherd to care for the flock under his protection, but to weep for those who strayed off the path. Like David mourned for Naval, even though he was against him and against God, he was still part of Israel. He said to himself in Psalms 119, 137, rivulets of water ran down my eyes because they did not keep your Torah. Anybody who breaks Shabbat is called wicked. Anybody who doesn't keep Torah is called Rasha, because you're doing tremendous harm because you made an oath to God. No, I didn't make an oath. I wasn't there. Read Deuteronomy, please. All you are standing here today, and even those who are not here today, okay? We are the descendants of all those who stood there that day and said, Na'aseh v'nishma. We made an oath. It is our responsibility. So when Jews do not keep Torah, David is crying for them. Why? Because he knows what is to come of them, and it is not a good thing. Rivulets of water ran down from my eyes because they did not keep your Torah. Palgei mayim yardu einai al lo shamru toratecha. When one man of Israel does what he is commanded to do, the heavens rejoice, God is glorified, and all of Israel are elevated as a result of one person just doing it. Can you imagine if everybody did it? But when one man of Israel strays from the path, there is condemnation from the heavens. Look at those who you gave the Torah to. We told you not to give the Torah to them. Look at what they're going to do. Or, what is man that you are mindful of him? And on, you see? The name of God is then desecrated, and all Israel's merit drops accordingly. As a result, it is up to the rest of Israel to pick up that slack. We are as one, for better or for worse. That is why we must be so careful as to what we do and what we don't do. Everything has consequences, and everything will be given an account, as we saw with the gates of heaven, right? Go here, go there. At least it's up there, right? Not down there. But if we conduct ourselves to the best of our ability, with the forethought of clean hands and a pure heart, we will do more and have the proper intent, thereby exalting God's name, rectifying the world, and hastening the redemption with great mercy. And that is our class. This week we have Chag HaShavuot. This is a big one. It is exactly the same date as Israel receiving the Torah back in the wilderness. We're going on it this year exactly the same. So make this one count, people. Please, we might see some action after that, or maybe even before. So as always, thank you for joining me. Have a wonderful rest of the week. Have a Chag Shavuot Sameach, and have a Shabbat Shalom. Bye-bye.